Okay, today we're going to be tying a Comparadun. We're going to begin by wrapping our thread down from the eye to the bend of the hook, trimming off excess thread, and the first thing I'm going to tie in is the tail, which is an antron. You could use a Z-lawn, a shuck yarn, anything that helps imitate the shuck of the emerging mayfly. You want this to be about, I just selected just a handful of fibers, cut them out to the a little longer than what I really need, and I truly want this to be uneven. Shucks on the mayflies, when they break out of that exoskeleton, really are a jumbled mess, but they definitely follow the insect, so we want to imitate that. This can be about the length of the shank. We'll secure it to the shank of the hook on top of the shank, and then I'm going to wrap up about 3/4 of the way up the shank over the top of the excess, trim that off, back down and make sure I got it nice and secure, and that's going to be our shuck. And again, it's just a jumbled mess back there, and I like amber as a color. And look at the naturals, and that's usually the color of it. We're going to set the wings to begin with, and this is going to be a Comparadun hair, or from a coastal deer hair. It's very fine fibers. I think you can kind of see that in the video. And we're going to take a small chunk of this off. I've always struggled with trying to explain how much you'll need, but you want to grab a little more than what you think you're going to need, because you're going to end up cleaning, when you clean this up, you're going to lose some of that hair. So a small pinch of this hair, and then we're going to just open up our scissors and we'll just start to fan through it, and we're going to get rid of all of that under fur. And you're going to lose some hair to it. It's just part of it. All right, and then we're going to put this tips first into the hair stacker, like so. And then we'll just tap that down. Try not to shake the video too much, camera too much. We're going to set it to the side. We want those tips that are going to be at the base of it to be pointed in the right direction, which is going to be over the top of the, or in front of the eye of the hook. So we'll spin the base, we'll separate that. You can see all those tips are nice and lined up. We'll reach in with our right hand, grab those tips, grab that hair. We're going to tie this in so it's about the length of the shank. So I'll do a quick measurement. You see that the kind of difficult to see those black ends of that tip, the hair, but right at the eye of the hook, all the way back to where the bend where my fingers are at. I'm going to set that now on top of the shank of the hook, right at my thread, which is 3/4 of the way up the shank. 2 loose wraps, and you can see my index finger of my left hand. I'm kind of pinning that against the hook so that when I pull this tight and it starts to flare, it doesn't spin around the shank of the hook. We don't want to spin it. 4 or 5 wraps back to really help grab it, and then I just keep hold of that excess hair so I can quickly trim it off. If you let that go, then it's a little bit more difficult to get in there and trim it. You always have a few stragglers you got to get, and a few wraps to make sure you get that excess pinned down. And then we're going to come from behind that wing. We're going to fold that wing upwards and make a thread dam in front of it. And then you want this wing to separate, create a half moon around the shank. Okay, so we've set our tail, we've set our wing. We're going to wrap our thread back down to the bend of the hook. And what's left is create the body. And we're going to be using, in this particular one, just a light olive. This is super fine dubbing. Very easy material to dub with. Makes it create a nice tight body. And we'll just start creating our dubbing noodle, and then wrapping that. It's easy to grab a fiber from the wing. Try not to do that. And then we'll build up a slight taper from behind the wing. Got one little hair that wants to do its own thing. We'll need a little more dubbing. And then we'll wrap in front and create a little bit of a head there. Thread goes to the eye of the hook. We'll open that up, throw a whip finish. Trim off excess. And that is your Comparadun. You can see how that hair is separated by the shank of the hook, so you get a half moon, and that's going to help it sit on the water just the correct way. Great fly. You can also use CDC instead of that hair, and it works just as well.